Today we're going to try to clean up all this rust in the hatch area with some wire wheels and some Evapo-rust. Keep watching. Hey, what's going on everybody? Welcome back to the garage. And this week we're going to jump right into some more rust repair. However, this is a little bit different than we usually do. I don't believe there's any rot here in the hatch area, especially down where the spare wheel sits, and I think we can just clean it up. However, won't know until we actually jump right into it. So I've got some tools here that we're going to use to clean that up as best we can and see what we're working with. I bought a bunch of wire wheels to go on the grinder. Got my die grinder here with some various stuff. Cut-off disc in case we need to get into any tight areas. Some sanding discs that we use all the time. Some of these roll-locks and some cleanup discs. And I also bought some Evapo-rust at the recommendation of a bunch of you guys. So we're going to try all that stuff and see how well we can get this clean. I am hoping that we do not encounter any rot or really thin areas or anything. I don't think we will. I cleaned up, or actually my dad did, cleaned up some of the undercoating on the bottom of the car last weekend while he was here, and it's looking solid underneath there, although we didn't get to everything. And this stuff here is not as old of rust, I guess you could say, as the rest of the car, especially the floors. That had been happening over many years. This happened because the previous owner, or the garage that it was at, let it sit outside with the hatch open and a bunch of rain got in. So it shouldn't have penetrated too far into the metal, although that metal is incredibly thin, so you never know. But we're going to jump right in and start cleaning some of this up. We're going to start off here with the wire wheel and see how that does. That should be the least abrasive, I guess, because it shouldn't take off any metal, but it should take off all the flaky rust. I'm not running a spare tire in this car. I went over that a couple videos ago, and the reason for that is my wheels and tires are going to be nowhere close to the stock size. A spare tire would not fit in here that would be anywhere useful to me, and I'm just going to put in like I did on my Corvettes. They don't have a spare tire, so what I would do is just put a tire plug kit in the car and a small 12-volt air pump, and to be honest, I never had to use it, but that should take care of most issues. Other than that, you're gonna have to get it towed, but you know, if you get a full blowout, obviously. But anyways, yeah, not running a spare tire, so I might take off these brackets here because they're not needed. But I'm gonna keep the spare tire well. I'm thinking maybe I can use it for storage. You know, can put a piece of cardboard, or you know, not cardboard, but like that. They're really strong cardboard-like material that they use in a lot of these hatch areas to overset that. It's not cardboard, but it's kind of like cardboard. It's really thick and dense. Or maybe just make a false floor or something. I don't know. But I want to keep the spare tire well, at least for now. But if we run into issues with a lot of rot and everything in there, I might just cut that out and replace it with a flat piece of sheet metal, just because I don't need that there at all. But anyways, let's jump right into it. Gonna try the wire wheel out first, see how that does. Might start up here first, but we'll see. And let's see how it does. Make sure to wear your respirator when you're doing stuff like this. Well, this is not a good sign. Literally the very first place I started, I blew through. You can see I got a hole here, got a hole here, got another hole right there, and it's very thin throughout the rest of it. Not liking that. Let's clean up the rest of it and see what it's like before we make a decision. Wow, I really was not expecting this, guys. We got a hole here, another one here, it's thin here, got a hole down here. This is actually got holes in it up here. I really was not expecting it up there. Up here too. I don't know, maybe this sat outside got rusty longer than they told me, but I honestly was not expecting that much rust. I think what I'm gonna do, I mean, this for the most part feels solid. It's definitely pitted, but I'm not just punching through with my chipping hammer here. I think what I want to do is flip the car over, get underneath and scrape all of the undercoating off. That way we can see exactly what both sides of this thing look like and make a decision from there. With it dark in here and a light behind there, you can really see the holes showing up. Oh, it's terrible. So you can see here we got a bunch of undercoating on the bottom of the car. This is where some of it was already scraped off. The way I have found it the easiest is to just heat it up and scrape it off with a little scraper. You can use a heat gun. I've used a heat gun, works well. I find a torch just works a little bit quicker, so that's what I've been using. You really don't need to heat it that much. With the little cleanup disc on there, look at how nice that cleans up underneath there. That's because the rust came through from the top side, obviously. I don't know, maybe I just patch it. I mean, it's a spare wheel well, who's ever gonna see it? I'm gonna clean all this up. Just gonna do the same thing, torch, scrape, clean up with a disc, and I'll catch up with you guys when that's done. Maybe I'll have made a decision by then, I don't know. But I'll see you guys in a minute. Look at how nice that looks. Cleaned up incredibly well. It's a shame that the other side looks as bad as it does, because this side looks amazing. And really, it's not hard to clean this stuff up. It's a little tedious, but between using the heat and the scraper to get most of the undercoating off, and then using the cleanup disc to get the rest of it off, it's honestly pretty easy. So we definitely have some holes. We get a few holes down here, one up here. This section right here is clearly the worst section. The biggest hole's right here, and it's the thinnest. Oh yeah, we got a little hole right here. But honestly, it's not that bad. At least from this side. I mean, the water sat on the other side, so that's why the other side's obviously rusty and looking terrible, and this side looks good because the undercoating did its job. But there's one thing I forgot when I was debating this in my head, and it's that I'm gonna run the stock fuel tank. That's my plan right now. I'm gonna run the stock fuel tank with the 280z, and the way that the stock fuel tank mounts is right here. It sits right against here and down here. The fuel tank strap, one of them goes right here. So if I don't keep the spare wheel well, I need to either make mounts for the stock fuel tank, or I need to go to an aftermarket tank. And both are definitely doable, but I think right now it's best to try and save this. Try to keep the stock fuel tank with the spare wheel well in here. It's what I would prefer to do. So let's go look at the other side real quick. So as a comparison, this side looks absolutely terrible. And that is because this side is where the water all sat. But I think what I want to do is try using some of that Evapo-rust. A bunch of people said I should try it. I've never used it before, but I think it's a good option. It's not going to hurt anything anyway. So let's put the car back down level, and I think we'll get that Evapo-rust out and try that, see how it goes, and that will help with making the decision. If we can get that cleaned up good, we'll probably run with it. Obviously gonna have to do some patches, but let's see how good that Evapo-rust works and what it looks like when that's done. I tried a little bit out just to see how it works before I actually do this whole thing. I put a little bit right here, basically just put it on with the paintbrush. Kept having to re-wet it because it dries out, you know, and evaporates. Not real quick, I just had to do it twice. But basically I did this section here all the way over to about halfway over there just to try it. Let it sit for about a half an hour, and it definitely had an effect. It definitely needs longer. That half an hour is not enough for this amount of pitting, and it worked though. It did work. So looking at the instructions, you're really supposed to basically soak your part or tool or whatever in a bucket of that Evapo-rust so that it stays wet the whole time. That is not possible here. I would need a absolute ton, a couple gallons anyway, and I only have a gallon to fill this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour a bunch in here. You can see I put some tape from below on all my holes so that it doesn't just drain out, or at least hopefully it doesn't just drain out. But we're going to try pouring a bunch in here so we got a nice pool, and take my paintbrush, you know, I got an old used paintbrush, and coat the surfaces that aren't soaked in it, which most of it will be, I think, because of the fact that the worst part is what sat with the water on the bottom, you know, the bottom portion. Anyways, that's my plan. I'm going to pour a bunch in there. I'm going to keep the rest of it wet with my paintbrush, just check it every once in a while. We're going to let it sit for probably an hour or so, and then I can drain it back into a bucket, you know, through one of my holes there, and rinse it out with water, because you have to rinse it off with water after, and we'll see what it looks like. And then apparently it's still good even after you've used it. You can keep using it for a while. It does degrade, but it doesn't, you don't just completely lose the rust dissolving properties the first time you use it. So let's pour a bunch in here, spread it out, and wait a half an hour or an hour or so, and check back in. Looks like the wheel well tips that way a little bit, unfortunately, but we can make do. Now we'll just let it sit, keep this part wet back here, keep brushing it, and see how it goes. That's after about an hour. You can see during the time lapse I was brushing it every 10 minutes or so, all the edges, and it didn't all evaporate. There's nothing in there now, right? But it didn't evaporate. It was actually leaking through that hole right there where it was sitting the most. Just the tape didn't seal, I guess. So we still got all of everything that was in here. It's just in a bucket underneath. But we gotta rinse it out. So let me get some water. We'll rinse all this down and then we'll take a good inspection. All right, check it out. We took off a lot of rust. There's a lot more bare metal showing up now, all over the place. So it definitely works. It definitely does work, and that was after only an hour. I only let it sit there about an hour. So I think what I want to do, I'm still not 100% convinced on repairing this just yet, although that's still where I'm leaning. What I think I want to do is we're going to jack the car up in the front to get this spare wheel well a little more level so it doesn't all just dump up front there, right? Gonna seal that hole up a little better so the Evapo-rust doesn't just drain out, and let it sit for longer. I'm gonna probably let this sit for a couple hours. I'll have to keep coming out and wiping this down with the brush still because I don't have enough to actually fill this wheel well. But like before, most of the rust is on the bottom. I think that's the plan for now. I'll dump everything I have in there to fill it up as much as I can, and we'll see how it looks after another couple hours and go from there. I think that's the best plan. This is gonna have to be fixed up here and back there. There's no way around that. Those are going to have to be fixed. It just depends on what we do here, because if I'm cutting all this out, I'll be taking sheet metal up to this lip right here. This is a lip, basically just sits down in the sheet metal, the spare wheel well does. So if we are replacing it, we'll be taking all of that out. So it'll be basically right to where that rust is. If we're not, I'll just cut out right along there. Yeah, that's the plan for now. Unfortunately, no 100% answers, but that Evapo-rust definitely works. It definitely takes rust off. And like I said, it was only sitting there an hour. So let me go do some prep, get this ready to go, and we'll try again. Well, I let it sit for a couple hours, cleaned it up, and there's definitely issues. I grabbed my chipping hammer to see how soft we are, and we got a lot more holes. Around here, it's soft. I can punch through. Holes here. There's good spots though. There's spots where it's nice and solid, but there's also a bunch of spots where it's not nice and solid. You know, like down here, we got a couple holes now. We can make more holes quite easily. I also tried cleaning it up with a cleanup disc. And it cleans up pretty decent, at least where it's not pitted. Obviously that thing does not get down in the pits. And to be honest, this really did not make my decision any easier. I'm still undecided on what I want to do. Let's turn the lights off real quick and backlight this and see just how many holes are in there. Oh, look at all those holes. It looks terrible. So, I really don't know. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I might sit on this one for a little bit and come back to it when I've made a decision. You know, we could basically keep the sides, because the sides are good, nice and solid. This piece is nice and solid. We could basically just cut the bottom piece out, the bottom flat piece where everything would sit and where all the water sat. And I don't think it would be too bad, because it's a very simple shape. It's a big, nice, flat circle, except for here, which I don't even know if I would need to worry about doing anything there. Yeah, I could just make it the same level all the way around. We just need to do something to keep this in place, basically just anchor it around so that it can't move. I think it would be pretty easy to do, but I don't want to hastily make a decision. So I'm gonna sit on this one a bit and we'll come back to it when I've made a decision. So while I figure out what I want to do with that spare wheel well, Lila and I took a trip out of state to pick up something very important for the car. So we're gonna cut to that footage now and we will come back to the spare wheel well later. What's going on, everybody? We are on a special trip today. It's currently 4:09 a.m. and Lila and I and Rocco are headed to pick something up for the 280Z. Oh, we've been driving a couple hours, sitting here at a rest area. Lila's over letting Rocco go pee, but one of the subscribers sent me a link to something we definitely are going to need for the 280Z. Something that's not super easy to get. I can't just order online. Well, technically I can, but it's not the easiest to ship. So yeah, we're making the drive. It's about 5 hours down, 5 hours back. Long trip. Like I said at the beginning of the video, we left at just after 4 this morning. So we haven't made it out of Maine yet, but getting there, halfway there-ish. So yeah, we'll keep going and I'll catch up with you guys when we get down to Connecticut. Check out what we got. Nice clean roof off a 280Z. It's got some issues, got some dents back here, but it obviously doesn't have a hole for a sunroof. And the front edge is all nice and clean. There's no rot up there. So I got that from Derek down here in Connecticut. I took some video of his car. He's got a nice 260Z that he restored himself, painted, built, everything. And Derek linked me a video of another channel doing a profile on him and his car. I'll link that down below so you guys can check him and his car out. So yeah, we drove down here 5 hours each way just to pick this up. Got it for a couple $100 and saved me a ton of money that I would have spent on getting one shipped or buying that carbon fiber roof. That was $1,500. But overall, definitely happy with this. Got those couple issues to fix once I swapped the skin over to my 280Z, but it should be a lot easier than trying to fill that sunroof hole in. You know, trying to form that myself would not have gone well, I don't think. So now we got another 5-hour ride back up to Maine. Just grabbed some lunch. Lyle's letting Rocco walk around, go pee, stuff out here behind this business park. So anyways, yeah, time for the ride back. Rocco, what you doing, bud?
Cybertruck? Not a Cybertruck, is it?
Continue straight for 5 minutes to I-95 north towards
It's ugly as hell.
Well, we made it back. It was a long trip, about 14 hours in total. We left at like 4 a.m. this morning, just a touch after. Got back at 6. We had some stops. Actually hit some traffic on the way back. Going down was perfect. No issues on the way down. Although there was a huge accident on the northbound lane when we were going south this morning in, it was either in Mass or Connecticut, I forget. I think it was in Connecticut. It looked like a huge box truck or a boxed trailer truck. Flipped over, caught on fire. They had big cranes and everything. You saw that in the footage from the way down. There was a couple other accidents on the way back up. We rerouted a couple times and actually hit traffic on the reroutes because everybody else was going that way too. But overall, it was a good trip, very long trip. Rocco went with us. He did really good. It's his first long trip. He literally just sat in the back seat the whole time. No issues, no barking, no whining, nothing. We had to let him out, obviously, every once in a while, stop at rest areas and stuff, so that increased the time. Had some lunch, but anyways, back here, got the roof here. I've checked it out some more. Definitely a good purchase. The only issue is right here, these weird dents in the back. The points right there where it rusted from the paint chipping off. I believe, if we look at here, lines right up with the spot welds on the bottom. So I don't know if somebody pried down on that at some point, changing the headliner, or if it just got hit. I don't know, it's very odd. Other than that, it is a huge, huge improvement compared to the roof that I got on the car now. There's no rot up here, unless there's some hidden behind here, but judging by the rest of it, highly doubt it. So my plan with this is to just take the roof skin off. I'll take the roof skin off of here and toss it. There's a seam right here. I don't know if there's a seam on the front, so I don't know if I chop it somewhere right here and re-weld that. I'm not going to chop the whole A-pillar. That's not my plan. I know other people have done that. That seems sketchy to me. Maybe if I was running a cage, but I'm not planning on running a cage. Could change, but I'm not planning on running a cage. And not having a cage and having weakened A and C pillars, it doesn't seem like a good idea to me, but Why don't you guys let me know if anybody's done this, or either a roof skin swap or a full roof swap. Let me know. I definitely would like the advice on that, because this is going to be, it's going to be an important one, because that is right out in the open where everybody's going to see. I definitely want it to come out good. But even driving down there to get that today, with the full day, not really wasted, but spent going to get that, is still going to be less time than I would have trying to fix this. I would have way more than 14 hours in this, trying to fill this hole and make it look good and fix all this rust up front. So it's well worth it, even though we had to spend a whole day going to get that. And honestly, I got it for what I believe is a good price, even though I had to go pick it up. You know, with all the other miscellaneous expenses, gas and all that stuff, maybe an extra $100 over what I paid for it. So even with that, is way cheaper than if I had somebody ship me one. And it's way cheaper than the carbon fiber roof too. And honestly, I prefer to go with the sheet metal roof. It's gonna about do it for this video. I'm not 100% sure still on what I'm doing with this. I'm leaning towards basically replacing this ring of sheet metal at the bottom, keeping this, keeping the sides. Those I think will clean up enough. And I think that is the best option, other than buying a spare wheel well and putting it in. We still have to fix this here, so this is all gonna have to get peeled up. It's gonna have to get peeled up over there. Or maybe we can do something from underneath. Maybe we don't need to peel it up, because that's, I believe, it's mostly accessible from underneath. It's just a shame that they let this sit with the hatch open and fill up with water. I mean, other than the roof here, if this wasn't here, there would essentially be no rust left on the car, except for light surface rust here and there that we haven't cleaned up yet. But yeah, definitely would appreciate your guys' input on what I should do with the wheel well, what you think of the Evapo-rust. Let me know what you think of the pickup here and how I should replace it. If I should do what I'm planning on, replace the skin, or if there's something better. Any input on that would be a huge help. But I'm gonna leave this one off here, and I will see you guys in the next video.